My name is MS.ABA and you're watching Africa on Focus. Join me every week as I dive into the world of global Africans changing the world dynamically. Every Sunday on High Radio.
My God, you're the one for me. You give me good, good loving. Nothing can compare to this. Oh, Dara, oh, Dara. If ever see me, oh, Dara. Oh, Dara, oh, Dara. If ever see me, oh, Dara. Bami, oh, Bami. Bami, oh, Bami. Oh, na, na, yeah. Come along, let me check. Oh, if ever say, let's say. Come along, let me check. Oh, if ever say, let's say. Okay. Your love is more than okay. So my debt to your love, it's always for sure. Your love is more than okay. Oh Dara, if ever see me, oh Dara, oh Dara, oh Dara, if ever see me, oh Dara. Bami, oh, Bami. Bami, oh, Bami. Oh, na, na. Come on, let me check. Oh, if ever say, let's say. Come on, let me check. If ever say, let's say.
You check me like cha-cha-cha, just to hold me more cha-cha. I feel it so tenderly, I cannot even la-la. But it's okay. This love is more than okay. Okay, I'm just a looky. How can I keep it looking? Yeah. The Pharisees in me, all that for me. I never know I want to for you.
Bami, oh, Bami. Bami, oh, Bami. Come on, let me check. If I say, let's say. Come on, let me check. If I say, let's say. Okay. Your love is more than okay. Okay. Your love is more than okay.
There is no easy road to freedom. We must therefore act together for the birth of a new world.
Brother Bobby. Yeah, brother Fujo. I want to run Uganda. I choose the route. See, people need to be free Rasta. Yeah, man, people need change, man. Rasta, let's go again from over Jamaica now. Cause if it takes a revolution, freedom will have to come. By the bullet, on the bullet, let them will be done. Africa, you know, who have been fighting for your rights, who burn their candles through the night. Yeah.
If I should take one no Kuluma, Patrice Lumumba, African freedom fighters. Every black man must be free.
And they should know who are the real revolutionaries. Now they should know who are the real revolutionaries. Cause if it takes a revolution,
Freedom will have to come.
by the bullet or the bullet,
Let thy will be done. Lord, free us from tyrants and oppressors who find joy in destroying their own. Save us from all those politicians and the selfish desires of men.
but you know you've done no wrong. Fighting for a nation that's been silent so long, for a poverty prolong. Oh, every African woman and man. So if it takes a revolution,
Freedom will have to come.
by the ballot or the bullet.
Let that will be done.
Oh, Africa, you know, who have been fighting for your rights, who burn their candle through the night. Yeah, Bobby Wine said, talk to them about it.
If I should take one minute, look good man. Patrice Lumumba, African freedom fighters. Every black man must be free. Hey, made free from all kind of captivity.
If it takes a revolution,
Freedom will have to come.
by the ballot or the bullet.
Let that will be done.
So if it takes a revolution,
Freedom will have to come.
by the ballot or the bullet.
Let that will be done.
Oh, Africa, you know.
Let there be justice for all. Let there be justice for all.
They tell us that this particular person or that particular country has greater or more favorable potentialities than the other. They do not tell us that we should unite, that we are all as good as we are able to make ourselves.
I go change my tomorrow. Tomorrow. We go change them today. Don't you wait for tomorrow. We go change them today. Hey, hey. We know tomorrow gon' be different. And together we gonna shine, shine, shine on. United we will change our story. And forever we gonna smile, smile. But for today I choose to be happy. And nothing gonna change my mind today. When I go be my portion. And nothing gonna change my mind today. Hey, hey. And my hope is in you. Cause you never let me down. Lord, you don't change my story. And my head will never frown. Oh, my hope is in you. And I'm looking onto you. For tomorrow go be better day. I know go very frown. Tomorrow, I have hope for tomorrow. Don't you wait for tomorrow. We gon' change them today. Hey, hey. You are the one who lights up my day. And without you, I'll never get this far. No matter what even comes my way. You are the one who lifts my head in all. All of my friends have walked on their way. Want to ask me how I come this far. I tell them all my hope is here to stay. The Lord Almighty who never let me fall. Lord, my hope is in you. Cause you never let me down. Lord, you don't change my story. And my head go never frown. All my hope is in you. And I'm looking unto you. For tomorrow go be better day. I don't go they frown. Tomorrow, I go change my tomorrow. Don't you wait for tomorrow. He has done it today. Tomorrow, I go change my tomorrow. Don't you wait for tomorrow. He has done it today. No, my hope is in you. Cause you never let me down. Lord, you don't change my story. And my head will never frown. All my hope is in you. And I'm looking unto you. For tomorrow be a better day. I know good they frown. My hope is in you. Cause you never let me down. Lord, you don't change my story. And my head will never frown. All my hope is in you. And I'm looking unto you. For tomorrow be a better day. I know good they frown.
Here we are back again. I managed to rightfully, at the right moment, make sure that that I brought in there. And as you can see, I am not at the studio. That is because we are fixing a few technical things at the studio. So I said, you know what? I've had one of my best conversations from home. So let me just bring it back home until I get to the studio. So, Lord willing, next week, myself and Donny, we will be chit chatting and taking on, the conversations from our Amsterdam High Radio studio. Anyway, welcome. I'm your host, Miss Aba, and here to present to you Africa Unfocused. And here is where we talk matters rising, everything Africa, and our world. Shout out to you and Kweku Nesta, who's saying, good evening, who's tuning in from Facebook. By the way, we are live on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you're on Facebook and you have, the space to share, sharing it for absolutely free, you can share this on your timeline so that people can see and know what's going on. Almost hitting quarter past 7 from the city of Amsterdam. We're coming to you live. Call this a lockdown sessions. Speaking of lockdown, it's been quite interesting the last period here in the Netherlands. How have you been? Where are you listening from? Where are you tuning in from? Let us know where you were catching up. Here it has been quite interesting. I think the West is actually dealing with the challenges of, shall we say it, yeah, actually dealing with the challenges from COVID, the strongest. To people's surprise, because they expected that on the side of Africa, the motherland, things would have been worse, but thank God it didn't. And here in the Netherlands, they announced another lockdown. I think it's about 2 or 3 weeks ago, where it was to the point that you couldn't even have any guests in your house, none other than two other guests, and that made sure that that COVID was really kept. I am going to share some interesting story about COVID, because there is something interesting to share about. I've gone through that test, the nostril one. Interesting. But as I can't continue with the show without my co-host Donny, who's on the background, peeping, and let me just get him on so that we discuss first our usual news flash, what's going on in Africa, and that we take the conversation to you, how you have been doing, of course. In the meantime, again, if you're listening on Facebook, YouTube, and all the social platforms, make sure that you spread the word, you spread it around that Africa on Focus is here. We are going to talk about a lot. So let's get to it. Let me get my co host, Donny, on here. Hello, Donny. How are you?
Hello.
You're like
Hi.
looking into the camera as in like, I think I'm set, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, how's my sound? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it is. It is. How is
How's my
mine?
face? Can you see me? Yeah, I can hear you fine.
I see you've done something to the beard.
Yep. Yeah, it's gone.
You were like, you know what, this winter I have to go for that freshness.
hmm I got stuck in that thesis mode, the
Oh
beard.
yeah, yeah. Are you
Yeah.
finally out of it? Have you when is the results anyway?
Well, hopefully this coming week.
This week.
So yeah, I hope. Otherwise, it will be
Okay.
the week after. I mean, yeah, quite nervous about it, but it's all good.
Okay.
It's
So
all good.
how come that it's a maybe? Have they like said, okay, we're going to give the results within a week period or
Right? I mean, most of the times, I think even with exams, the uni has um up to 6 weeks or
okay.
4 weeks, yeah, to hand in to submit or to review the results.
Okay.
And yeah, so this coming week will be the fourth week.
Mm-hmm.
So the earliest of us receiving our results is this coming week, and then
Okay.
the latest will be the 2 weeks after that.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay, well, it's exciting.
it is.
I am trusting for good reports, so we can toast that. I believe it
Oh
highly
yeah,
that
definitely.
we could give a
Oh
toast.
yeah.
What is this? A master's?
Yep, it's a
Okay.
master's in project management.
Okay. All right. Look at you.
Look at me.
Look at you. So how have you been this
Yeah.
week?
This week has been good. Spent a lot of time behind my piano actually, so that
Oh,
was
that's good.
refreshing. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's been one of my main focus. Like right after my thesis, just work, gym, and home, just reading and piano.
Right.
And luckily, I've been doing that this week
Yeah.
to the max. So hopefully, I can pull that through because it's really good. It's very good for the body, for the soul. Just
Yeah.
those four activities: work, gym, reading, and piano, just
Yeah.
some music. That combination right there, that's gold. I
You
wish
need
I
to
can
keep
do that for
doing
the
that
rest of my life.
combination. Really, because this guitar next to me, I haven't touched it for like 2 weeks, and that is not good because my goal was morning, evening,
Mhm.
and
Mm-mm.
that was really the plan. But the concert
Yeah, you
came up,
just yeah.
and
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
afterwards, I'm gonna get back to it and actually going to take a walk, you know, before so I really yeah, man, I know what you're talking about. I need it. I'm like,
Yeah.
grabbing it back into
Yep.
that life of
Yep.
mine.
Yeah. You really have to force yourself to kind of like do it, and then so normally when I wake up, the first thing I do is just turn it on. Switch the piano on, and then because it takes a couple of minutes to start to fully operate. So in the meantime, just walk around, do my stuff, even my chores, and then once that's set, probably have breakfast. So
Right.
when I'm having my breakfast, that's when I come and sit behind my piano. So whilst eating, I'm still playing, doing my stuff. So that's the time that I use. And when you like really are into it, into the
Right.
playing, even after the breakfast, you take 30 minutes to play longer. But
Right.
if you're not feeling it, you just at least you've played during breakfast, and
Right.
then you just stand up and then go in. But then you still have done that part, and then so that's the routine every morning. When I wake up, just switch it on and see if you can get at least 15 minutes behind the
Right.
piano and then just play something. Um,
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that.
yes,
Seriously.
but with guitar is different. So because you really have to grab it and you can't let go of it, but you can
Yeah.
have your breakfast
Hmm.
while still holding it. So that is still possible.
Hmm.
But yeah, it works. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good.
How's your
Um,
week been?
yeah, it's always busy, Donny. It
Yeah,
always is.
still still very busy.
Yeah. Okay, so it's
Mm.
come down a bit. Obviously, um, Yeah, because the concert is done and so forth and so forth.
Yeah.
But I am really trying to work smart. That is really my assignment now, because I
Work
realized
smart.
that I working smart. Yeah, I realized that I've
Okay.
been given too much time to what's it
Too many
called?
things.
Um um yeah, to giving my time to things that aren't really, that I could, let's just say, use efficiently, things that I could be like, okay, 30 minutes and that's it. That's really what it's about. So I'm really looking at using that more efficiently,
Mm-hmm.
using the time, being a smart worker. That's really what it is. That's really what it is.
Okay.
But I must say that, I can't complain. I have really been able to rest more properly and all of those things. So
Yeah, that's
so
important.
I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, and now a new week is starting again. And here we are. Speaking of this week, I've been hearing a lot of things have been going on in Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Uganda, I mean, in general, what comes in the media, is one thing, but this is really one that even had protesters go to The Hague. Ugandan protesters go to the Hague concerning
So.
this matter. And even earlier on, it is no coincidence because I just
Yeah.
showcased my latest video, which is, kind of a quest to unite all Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And before that is a collab between Buju Banton and
Yeah.
Bobby Wine, which was like also some sort of a uniting Black people, a rise against,
Mm-hmm.
the current way of how politics is conducted, and it's no coincidence because one thing that has happened, and mind you that this has been an ongoing issue, and that
Yeah.
specifically relate concerns Bobby Wine, who is not just a music artist, but who is also an
Is he a
activist,
politician?
in
Okay.
his country. And I've been following up with his story, I think, for quite some 2 years now, because in some way down my research, I stumbled upon his activism, uniting young people to arise against the current way of how politics is conducted
Yes,
in
yes, yes.
Uganda. But
Mm-hmm.
him being arrested, and then he escaped, and then I'm just calling things on top of mind, and then
Mm-hmm.
him being I remember Amnesty even had to um, vouch for him and so on. And this has now been ongoing, now to the point that it even hits where Ugandans here in The Hague or in the Netherlands
Mm-hmm.
um, were protesting against, or they went to the Ugandan embassy, of
Yes.
course, to protest against what's going on. Did you catch any of that before I get into that?
No, please enlighten me.
Okay. Well,
Inform me about it.
one of the things, or what triggered this latest event to happen, was that 16 people have been killed in 2 days of protests in Uganda, triggered by the arrest of a musician turned presidential candidate, Bobby Wine. And the deaths occurred during security operations, police said in a statement, adding that a further 65 people had been injured and about
Mm-hmm.
350 arrested. The cause of death or the nature of the injuries was not disclosed. In this case, Bobby Wine has been an activist for a long time, aside from his music, and he specifically has been able to reach the young adults, the youth. His real name is Robert Kia Gulaji. He was again arrested on Wednesday for violating COVID restrictions, and that is what the police says. The 30-year-old has been accused of flouting coronavirus prevention guidelines against drawing large crowds following a campaign rally in the east of the country. He is one of the musicians that is challenging President Yoweri Museveni, who has been in power since 1986. So there you could probably fill in the blank
Yeah.
and already, tell what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
This has been, I'm actually, when I found out that he's now even a presidential candidate, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, oh wow. So he has been
So
persistent.
he's a
Um,
politician now.
Sorry?
He's a politician also, right?
He's a politician now, absolutely, and also
Mm.
sort of like a sign of hope, for especially the youth,
Yeah,
for the Ugandan youth. This is an ongoing thing, but this is the event that triggered for this week. Ugandans, including one of the guests that has been on the show, to run down to the Hague, where because the Hague is the city where all of the most of the embassies are located, to protest and call for the release of Bobby Wine. um he is an activist. He's a symbol of hope. He is a leader. And even if you look him up, you see endless of information about him, what he stands for, and even the
yeah,
influence that he has through his music is ongoing. And obviously he's a threat to the current power
yeah. The
that
power
is
structure.
there. Yeah, absolutely. This is again a same story. People in power, young people causing riots, and I feel like this year is sort of showing that one of the main Black people's issue is such as this. What do you think?
Um, yeah. Is it? That's a question that comes to mind. Is it this year more than previous years? Do we expect this to be more next year um, compared to this year?
Hmm.
I would
Um,
say that I would say not necessarily, but here's the thing. Revolution doesn't happen in one day, and it's not an event either. And with these type of um, atmosphere, with these environments, it
right.
always one thing leads to another.
Hmm.
And if and within a system of, let's say, oppression or a system of rulership,
Hmm.
there comes to a point where there's a tipping point somewhere,
Hmm.
but always there is a lead up to that tipping point.
Right.
Is to 2020 that tipping point for many for, let's say, in Africa, specific, for for the people to rise up against their leadership or to be fed up with
Hmm.
their leadership. I wouldn't. I would say it's too early to say that.
Hmm.
I would say 2020 has been, yeah, very very impactful, and it has brought um, a lot of things to light.
To the
But
surface, yeah, exactly,
yeah, to the
exactly.
to the surface. But I don't think it has reached the tipping point yet. Um, though and SARS has been has come to rise and has been internationally observed and also identified as, hey, this is a serious issue going on in Nigeria. We have cases in Angola. Even Ghana has had theirs. We have some in
Right.
Congo. So these things have happened in 2020, but I think that tipping point is has yet to happen. Maybe
Hmm.
next year or maybe the year after. But what is
Right.
definitely what we can say is, yeah, 2020 has been very, very remarkable in the sense that we have been opened to a lot of things, and that is also due to Corona. Corona has put so many things to, let's say, to rest. So many
Right.
like business wise things, like normally, you go on with your day by day by day because you have things to do, this and that. And then
Yeah.
lockdown happened and it was like, oh, okay, I can't do that, I can't do this. All right, so what's
Yeah.
going on? And then
Hmm.
people started finding out. So and even those who were not on top of things or were not concerned with many of these issues
Yeah.
simply because they were not facing it, now had that spare time, that little space for, hey, what's going on there? And then it popped up on their feed, either on Instagram or Facebook, and then they clicked on it and then looked into it and saw what was going on and then shared it, right?
Right.
instead of before it was like, oh, yet another thing, and they would just scroll and keep scrolling.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this year it has allowed people to pay attention to these things, but that tipping point of, okay, now it's done. Like we are
Yeah.
fed up. We have to do something
Hmm.
serious about it, not just protesting. I think we have yet to see that in
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of what we are yet to see, this is just to give way some information because for a lot of our listeners it relates to West Africa and a bit with my colleague Candy Silva, they get a bit of East African news. But there are
Hmm.
some interesting facts to find out more about Bobby Wine. He is a former musician and who took Ugandan politics by storm after winning a parliamentary seat in Kiandodo East by a landslide in 2017. The following year, the 38-year-old, which is relatively young, for politics
Hmm.
speaking,
Oh yeah.
African politics speaking, he announced that he would challenge the country's longest serving leader, Yoweri Museveni, in the election slated for January 2021. And over the last 2 years, he has grown to become Museveni's biggest challenger. Many of his young supporters even said that they are drawn to the scathing and unflinching critique of Museveni's heard in several of Wine's original songs. So there is where he uses his, power of impact.
Yes, well, yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm also going to show again that collab he's done with Buju Banton, who's also one of the outspoken artists
Yeah,
that
but you,
roots
yeah,
for uniting Black people in a way I
yep,
love because
yeah.
I literally enjoy listening to his
Buju
interviews
Banton.
and things. And in one such song about Museveni, Wine sings, "Freedom fighters become dictators, and they look upon the youth and say we're destruction."
Mm,
Very familiar story, right?
mm,
With the NSARS issues that we talked about, that comment from the president about you
yeah.
young people just go do agraric crazy. And Museveni, who initially dismissed Wine as a hooligan from the ghettos, had come to power in 1986 after overthrowing two dictators. So he himself
Mhm.
has been quite in the running of roughness, as we millennials would say. For a while, he was regarded as a freedom fighter and was praised for restoring stability in the country and encouraging economic growth. But he had been known to maintain a firm grip on power through repression and by silencing his opposition.
Mm.
So you see that, right? One becomes, so he didn't do it the Rawlings way, actually.
Nope.
Rawlings, in his case, introduced democracy,
Oh, I was,
two
yeah,
parties and so forth. He's just like, I'm gonna sit here my way or no way.
yeah.
And
I was about
that
to
is,
comment on that.
sorry,
I was about to say the same thing, but yeah,
right?
keep going. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? I
Hmm.
know. And obviously there had been earlier incidents, even prior before 2017, because they observed him being a threat of, successfully uniting people and having an influence. He had been arrested, tortured, and so forth. He had gone to U.S. for medical treatment, come back. So Bobby Wine is quite persistent, and I would say any person that would still come back to a country where they are arrested several times upon
Hmm.
doing something for his peers, his generation, I think has a good love for his country. We're going to keep an eye on this, and I think it really deserves
Definitely should.
some
Yeah,
yeah, some attention as to how the whole story of young people rising and what is the case here, resisting power that has been there for uh,
yes. Well,
ages and
30
so
years.
forth,
Yeah,
right?
that's a long time.
That
Since
is a
86.
long time.
Yeah, that is a long time.
Yeah. And it happens to be the kind of the, I don't know if it's like a cycle that keeps coming back when somebody comes in power, has bright ideas, and finds it difficult to let go. Um,
Yeah,
or
yeah, there has to be I don't know, there has to be something to it. One of the things that comes to mind is the fact that on their road to their position, or once they're finally settled within their position, within their in their rulership, they I suspect that they become, or the decisions that they make become too attached or too dependent on um, either external forces but also internal forces that
Right.
makes it impossible or nearly impossible or very hard to either transfer that power
Right.
or yeah, to let that go. Meaning, if they decide to transfer the power, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things, a lot of strings that were attached have to
Right.
be broken. But
Right.
some of the strings attached are impossible to break. So there
Mm-hmm.
is something going on in, yeah, within the decision that they made or within the environment. Because an important one of the phrases that is also key is um, they say power is not seen, is felt. Or and when it comes to presidency, it's not the president that has the power, but it's
Mm-hmm.
those this president is surrounded by. So it's the people around him, or who, because they're the ones who keep him in power.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that circle, the that is the circle that you cannot remove, and that is the circle that has been in
Right.
power for ages. So to even think about replacing this one candidate, you have to
Mm-hmm.
think about replacing the entire power structure, the entire circle, which is, I
Yeah.
don't know. But if you start thinking about that, that is that is like trying to move the World Trade Center, or trying to move an entire community. No, it's
Yeah.
easier to like get people outside of it, but to say, oh, move Amsterdam to London or Amsterdam to
Yeah.
Paris, like that's nearly impossible. But hey, who knows? We have to really dig into it, and I'll do
Yeah.
some research to see what the democratic structure is like
Yeah.
in Uganda, to
That's
see
worth
if
talking
they,
about.
yeah, if they do hold elections, because some of them, when they came into power after the independence, a lot
Yeah.
of African countries. So in the Western world, we have this 4-year elections.
Yeah.
Some of them have 6 years or even 10 years, right? So if they have let's say a 10-year election cycle, so that means you have to be reelected 2 times. That's
Right.
20 years already. And if you
Yeah.
and some of them don't have a limit to how long you can sit during your presidency, which former President Rawlings also made possible, because I think in his time it wasn't like you have maximum of 2 times,
Right.
right? But
Yeah.
during his reign, that is when it was like, okay, I've been on here 2 times. You know what? It's time for another. Even though it was hard for him to give that up, he still allowed that, and also changed the the constitution to allow presidents only to sit on the throne for 2 times, and then
Lord.
further democrat. Yeah. So we have to look into in Ghana how their political structure is set up,
Yeah.
and if the democracy around it, because that's very, very interesting, because we're now in 2020 and we're dealing with this type of rulership from the early
Man.
1900s and stuff. So yeah.
Man, exactly, exactly. Very
Hmm.
interesting. Before we're gonna go and have a look at that Black People Uniting song, I love what you share about the NSARS, because I was thinking like, what's the status now with
Hmm.
NSARS? It's kind of been quite silent, as people have been literally been put to silence.
Yeah, yeah.
Opposing protesters and arresting them and violence and so forth. Well,
Hmm.
one that you shared is that the UK government and Parliament on Thursday responded to the hashtag #EndSARS petition by some Nigerians against the Nigerian government. I
Yes.
always wonder, like, what results is that really gonna bring? You're dealing with people that don't care. Come on.
uh,
Um, with about 210 plus thousand signatures, the petition seeks to implement sanctions against the Nigerian government and officials over abuse of power by the operatives of the now
Mhm.
disbanded Special Anti Robbery Squad, also known as SARS, and the alleged shooting at protesters calling for SARS disbandment. Reacting, the UK said it awaits the outcome of Nigerian investigations into reports of police brutality, nothing that it would not publicly speculate on future sanctions designations.
Mhm.
While I was reading that, I was thinking that what would be the next step? Is it that, that is the question that comes to mind. Anyway, the
Mhm.
statement reads: the UK government is deeply concerned by violence during recent protests in Nigeria, which tragically claimed lives. Our thoughts are with the families of all those affected. The Foreign Secretary issued a statement on October 21 calling for an end to the violence and the Nigerian government to urgently investigate reports of brutality by its security forces and hold those responsible to account.
Yeah.
The Minister for Africa tweeted on October 16th, noting the Nigerian people's democratic and peaceful calls for reforms, and again on October 21st, encouraging the Nigerian authorities to restore peace and address concerns over brutality towards civilians. He
Mhm.
reiterated these messages when he spoke to Foreign Minister Onyama on October 23. Um, Again, I am quite concerned. I think that the only, action that would be of effect would be if UK would probably say, you know what, we're disbanding any business relations with Nigeria or anything of that. I don't know what to think of this, but looking at reading these stories, um, Uganda, and we also had the bit of Congo. I am like, man, what is this? I feel like I need to talk to somebody that's been around and
Yeah.
that knows the cycle of these things happening for like the last 30 years. That's what I feel like.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Yeah. Definitely someone within the political science um, um, yeah field of studies to give us some information about what can possibly be the consequences, or how should the world deal with um, um, such such matters. What I
Yeah.
do know is, um, I mean, because the United States, for instance, I think it was roughly 10 years ago when the United Nations decided to sanction Russia
Hmm.
for, don't remember for what, because I think they were suspecting Putin or the Russian government. Um, it wasn't not only mingling with the elections of this the states back in 2008, but
Hmm.
also there were other matters concerning either Ukraine or one of those countries within that
Right.
region. And
Right.
so they sanctioned Russia, and one of the sanctions included was that because they had a big trade with Russia when it came to gas, so
Hmm.
that was being shut down for a period of time.
Right.
And also there was another sanction. Also, another
Yeah.
issue that came to mind was, I think they were about to hold the Winter Olympics in Russia, um, also in '08 or in '10 or '12, and
Yeah.
from the government or from the power structure in Russia, there were anti-gay and homophobic remarks made, and so that also brought some that allowed certain countries to boycott
Yeah.
the Winter Olympics there. So there are many ways to sanction a country politically.
Right. Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see. But here in this case, it's only Great Britain, the UK looking into it. It will be
Yeah.
much better if it was the EU. But of course,
Hmm.
Britain is not part of the EU anymore, so it will probably Britain, and then they can combine or join forces with the EU
Yeah.
to, have certain strategies on sanctions. If
Right.
so, the UK said we are going to look into this, and if found that yes, they are responsible or they are
Hmm.
guilty of this and that, then
Yeah.
then we can think about possible sanctions. So the
Yeah.
investigation has to start first, but I would say once the investigation is ongoing um, um, and matters are being looked into in depthly,
Yeah.
internal and as well as
Hmm.
externally, then the EU also has to stand up and say and also make a statement, as well as other um, um, governmental institutions globally,
Right.
because that will put pressure on the power structure of Nigeria. And
Hmm.
I suspect they don't really care that much. Why? Because on one hand, yes, external forces can give their sanctions, but on the other hand, for instance, with the EU, they are restricted. They can make a statement, but they're also very restricted to the extent where they can um, apply whatever pressure they have.
Hmm.
One, and this is so funny because the EU, yes, they do have an institution, yes, they do have power. However, they do not have an army. So,
Right.
with what the EU is concerned, every time they say something, most countries think, yeah, well, it's just the EU speaking. But
Right.
the power they have is, they can make trading very difficult. They cannot shut it down completely, but they can make it very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And they are backed by a lot of European countries as well, so that gives them that power. But
Yeah.
to actually enforce or to force a country to submit or to do what you want them to do, that is something that they cannot do.
Right.
So it's also going to be very intense if this happens,
Hmm.
as to will Nigeria respond accordingly, or will they still be like, you know what, we don't care, it's our
Yeah.
country,
Yeah.
and we do what we do
Yeah.
because it's still their right to do
Yeah.
that as a nation. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's this going to this another juicy
It is.
very complicated, interesting phenomena, and yes,
It
we
is.
have to look into this very very closely,
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll
very
see
very
that, ladies and
closely.
gentlemen. So don't give up on the NSARS post.
Hmm.
There is still a lot of work to be done because always the
Oh yeah.
question arises, what does, all of the social media activities and the information sharing and stuff do? There is still a lot of work to be done. And even talking
And
about
one
it in this setting.
And
Yeah.
one thing that definitely helps is the pressure internally from inside. So the celebrity standing up, that is something that really helps. Um, and also the financiers or the entrepreneurs within the countries, within the
Yeah.
nation, they can make the difference.
Yeah.
UK can say whatever they want. They can um because what if UK says, all right, we'll start business? So that is a business thing, right? And
Yeah.
their business is with businesses in Nigeria. It's not with the Nigerian government, for instance.
Yeah.
So it will be probably, so if UK says we're not doing business with Nigeria, they can say that. But if the businessmen don't say we're not doing business with Nigeria, if Shell doesn't say we're not doing business, if all the big brands that have a market within Nigeria don't say, hey, this is ongoing within your country and
Yeah.
it really affecting our business negatively, so
Yeah.
we cannot associate ourselves with this,
Yeah.
that will force some internal pressures, because now the businessmen in Nigeria are going to look at the president and be like, hey, this is, I don't know what you're doing and I don't know what you're about to do, but whatever you're doing, if you like fix it now. That's where
Right.
pressure comes from. So there has to be monetary pressure, and that is only felt within,
Hmm.
let's say, the business culture of of the nation,
Right.
not political. Because politically they are independent; they can do whatever. Even if they are
Hmm.
killing their people, that's that's them. But
Yeah.
once um, will they drive Nigeria broke? No, because the leaders also love money.
Yeah.
So if that has is being cut short, if the celebrities stand up, and because they control the people,
Right.
celebrities and on those influencers, they can really either start riots or also end riots, like Davido did the other day,
Yeah. Yeah.
talking to the police and to the protesters. So
Right.
that is where the individuals in the on the inside can also form a coalition, and that talk with the power structure, not against it, because they are, they have to sit down at the table,
Yeah.
and once that is set, that's when the outside pressure can also be materialized on the inside, because then they will work to fix that union, or to fix that
Yeah.
transaction externally and external. So that I'm still thinking about how in depth this is and how
Yeah.
complicated it might get. And again, it hasn't reached the tipping point yet.
Yeah.
Because at the tipping point, that's when, okay, all right, nope, he doesn't want to leave this his office. He literally is clinging on to this, so something has to be done.
Yeah.
That's that tipping point, and it's going to be something interesting to see. Um,
Absolutely.
I hope it doesn't happen this year, because
We've got enough. Listen, I'm
there
already looking at
yeah,
this year like you better not bring
yeah,
something
yeah.
else crazy up into to people.
No,
Um,
no, no. We, we just have to be very civil.
right.
We have to be very civil about this matters, and be serious too.
Yeah.
Be very serious. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll keep an eye on that. And also in the meantime, shout out to Kweku Nesta, who says, I think it was his remark regarding the earlier topic when we talked about Bobby Wine. And he says it is only in Africa that presidents or presidentials are over 60 years. And once someone below that age rises, then problem. So that one day all of the youth will arise. Oh my gosh. That's such a theme for a song. Speaking of a song, let's listen to again this collabo between Bobby Wine and Buju Banton, Bullet or Ballot, Uganda. Very relevant, is it bullet or a ballot? Let's have a listen at that, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes where we will have one of our returning guests coming to talk to us, Palmer
Yes.
Dankwa, and we will be talking more about what's going on in the world of Africans. Let's
Mhm.
go. Let's have a listen. And
There is no easy road to freedom.
You're breaking news.
We must therefore act together for the birth of a new world.
Brother Bobby. Yeah, brother Buju. I want to run Uganda. Uganda. I choose the route. So people need to be free, Rasta. Yeah, man, people need change, man. Rasta, let's go again from over Jamaica now. Cause if it takes a revolution, freedom will have to come. By the bullet, on the bullet. Let that baby down. Africa, who have been fighting for your rights, who burn your candles through the night. Yeah, yeah.
If I should take one minute, no Kuluma, Patrice Lumumba, African freedom fighters. Every black man must be free.
And they should know who are the real revolutionaries. Now they should know who are real revolutionaries. Cause if it takes a revolution,
Freedom we have to come.
by the ballot or the bullet,
Let thy will be done, Lord. Free us from tyrants and oppressors who find joy in destroying their own. Save us from all those politicians and the selfish desires of men.
but you know you've done no wrong. Fighting for a nation that's been silent so long, for a poverty prolong. Oh, every African woman and man. If it takes a revolution,
Freedom we have to come.
by the ballot or the bullet,
Let thy will be done.
so if it takes a revolution,
Freedom we have to come.
by the ballot or the bullet,
Let thy will be done.
oh Africa, you know, who have been fighting for your right, who burn their candle through the night. Yeah, Bobby Wine said, talk to them about it.
If I should take one look, no good man. Patrice Lumumba, African freedom fighters. Every black man must be free. Hey, break free from all kind of captivity.
If it takes a revolution,
Freedom we have to come.
by the ballot or the bullet,
Let thy will be done.
so if it takes a revolution,
Freedom we have to come.
by the ballot or the bullet,
Let thy will be done.
oh Africa, you know.
Let there be justice for all. Let there be justice for all.
Chulo, done dada, done dada, now we be done dada, yeah, done dada, we be done dada, now we be done dada. Telling me how you feeling. The people you they help, say now them go fuck you up, eh? They're gonna telling me how you feeling. Yeah. The people you show love to, now them go fuck you up, eh? Yeah. Today broke, you say fuck up. I care guys when I bring up. I pick them from the bus stop. And if I call them, they know they pick up. All these guys when they insult. So nice and I won't stop. My level can never drop. I'm the role model and the big boss. All the money when I get, I wanna hold it. I don't wanna go to the club one night and blow it. Yeah, me know. Yeah. The best investments on yourself, oh. I don't want yes, so nobody come pick my call no more. What's my name? Don Dada. Say again. Don Dada. What's my name? Tell me Don Dada. Don Dada. Don Dada. What's my name? Don Dada. Say again. Don Dada. What's my name? Tell me Don Dada. Say my name. Don Dada. Every day I just say go. No time. When they hate, but as you say me, I get so much loving. I don't understand how you help a brother and turn them back on you. Every day till I die, they can never see me fall. That one I like. Oh well, all the money in the world, I wanna hold it. It's stupid. I don't wanna go to the club one night and blow it. Give me now. Yeah. The best investments on yourself, oh. Don't believe people, man. I don't want yes, so nobody can pick my call no more. Yeah, what's my name? Donada Papi. Say again. Right. Donada Papi. What's my name? Papi Donada. Uncle Donada. Amiga Donada. What's my name? Donada. Say again. Donada. What's my name? Papi Donada. All of me, say my name. I'm Donada. I love me. Stupid, stupid, happy, happy, great, chill out. Right.
And that was Timaya with Don Dada, and before that we
That
listened
was
to.
some good music.
I know, right?
I like that second one
You know,
too.
you know one
Yeah.
thing. One thing I realized. I think my cousin brought my attention to this. That one of his
Mm,
song was actually about was about was him talking about the political uprise that he predicted that would come, which is now showing that it's in SARS. It was one song I think it was called "Dem Mama," and he said something Nigeria, now my country, na my story, something like that. And then he goes into the
mm,
story of the harsh treatment and all of that. I'm gonna check that song out again. But
mm.
you really realize that music is something else when it holds
Yeah.
a particular message, and it really speaks about one of the things that, in spite of the cussing, that came out in the song, was also talking about, I don't want to just make money now and blow it. You know what I mean? He really reflects as in what the meaning of power and resources really means.
You
So
know who that reminds us of?
tell me.
Looking at the first clip of Buju Banton and Bobby Wine,
No.
Fela Kuti.
All right, right, right.
Fela Kuti was so he was
Was what
that man
I
in
know,
Nigeria. Yeah.
with Fela Kuti, I'm like, okay, it's not entirely women empowering those type of people,
No.
but I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
He,
against no,
he,
he was a force against the power structure, like
right,
literally. Um,
right,
but the only difference is he never wanted to be in the powerful position or in the presidency like Bobby Wine does now. And I know Bobby Wine has been heavily influenced by Fela Kuti,
right,
obviously, definitely.
right.
When you look at him and the type of music that is making, but the difference is, Bobby Wine feels their urge to, all right, so we have to bring changes. All right, no one is
Yeah,
going to do it. I'm gonna step up to it. Meanwhile, Fela
yeah,
Kuti was just pointing out the injustice and everything that was
yeah,
going on, but never desired to be,
yeah,
to take that action upon himself to also to solve that. But that's the beauty of art, or
right.
the artists around that time. They say if you really want to know how an era is, just look at the music,
Right.
or look at the art pieces, the paintings, the movies that
Yeah.
has been going on in that era. But then not those for profit, not the commercialized one, but the
Yeah.
ones, the true artists, the ones who reflect the environment. So really talk
Yeah.
about ongoing issues, and as well as have a way of course, making it beautiful, or soundly entertaining for us to receive it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that I like that song by Timaya a lot. So yeah,
Yeah. Me
that's
too. Me too.
I
Definitely
looked it
would.
up.
Everyone, you're still listening to Africa Unfocused with myself, Miss Abba, and Donny, where we talk matters rising as it relates to the world of Africans, global Africans, as I would say. And
Hmm.
today you're tuning in a slide of a lockdown session because we're repairing some small technical things at the studio. And I said, you know what, I'm going to take the show here from home where we can still talk about what's going on in our world. We have so much of a news flash to talk about, but time
Yeah.
is running, and we have in a few minutes we have our special guest. Balgrave Wachadankwa to come and join us to talk about a few important things. I think this show could be really themed as power structures, youth,
Mm.
and enforcing change. I think that could really be one spoken about.
Yeah.
Last week we discussed that we would talk a bit more
Bravo.
about the legacy of the late. Um, JJ Rawlings, who unfortunately was it on the 12th of November, was announced that he passed away. He went and be with the deceased. And myself and Donnie, we've been talking about his legacy, the divide of opinions regarding
Hmm.
him and the way he entered into power and the way he dealt with things. Earlier this week, I had a conversation with my auntie, about him, and myself and my sister, my younger sister, were asking, like, why is it that if we are to look at from what we hear from people here
Hmm.
that probably fled around that time, it doesn't look kind of good. And he
Right. Hmm.
himself, his structured way, you could see that he was no nonsense. I mean, he expressed that in his whole demeanor. Is it
Yep.
positive or is it negative? And I do remember her sharing that, what, it's both. She said, because at the time when he came into power, I was really young, and especially in the earlier years, it was really tough because
Yeah.
at some point, okay, it was evident that the rich were having their riches, and the local people were not um, having like simple things, enough food, enough supplies, and things like that. And basically, what this is what she said. He didn't agree with how can an average Ghanaian not have the means to survive while these rich people are sending their kids off abroad and this and this and that, which is a good observation.
Hmm.
But she said, what the way he handled things was really saying to other people that were in power or that had maybe a store or acquiring a particular kind of wealth. He was basically ending that whole structure of how that wealth was acquired, for them.
Hmm.
And if you didn't agree with it, you could be killed. So a lot of people that she knew fled, and she said that it was quite tough because it still at the time was also hard to get food and things because other countries, the Netherlands, UK, and stuff had stopped trading at that moment with Ghanaian companies. So it was things were limited. It was
Hmm.
tough before. Um, the ball eventually got rolling. So she said afterwards, if you look at the changes, you see where it was implemented for, but there
Hmm.
were some tough
But
times
then,
when he came in,
oh yeah.
into power. And yeah, it did allow us to kind of have a critical look. I don't know if I can conclude this, but I find the issue of power a bit like scary. You get what I mean? As in like no, but
Oh
it's like the
no.
people that come into power cannot fully do all they want to do for the week,
Oh no,
because
definitely not.
they
No.
they meet the strong in some way, and of course, what is needed to keep the strong satisfied is a whole. It requires a different structure. I find it something that a lot of people seek that kind of power, but I think it's so dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous because we are still being fooled with to think that, like I said earlier, it's not the one you see in power who holds
Yeah, you're
the
right. Yeah, I
power,
get that.
right? So simply there's just too much power for one being.
Right.
For example, in the United States when Trump became president,
Yeah.
and it was Dick Gregory who said this, late Dick Gregory. He said, "Do we really think that?" And I think he referred to him as a fool, like a fool like Donald Trump. They would give the code to the nuclear weapon of the United States to this man only when there are generals who have served in the military their entire life don't have that code? Or do you think he's the only one, so the president elect will be the only one carrying all like that kind of power? No, of course not. So most of the times the one in power probably has the least amount of power,
Right.
especially in democracies. Why? Because they are rotated. Meanwhile,
Right.
those around him can sit there for 20 years. They serve different administrations, and they are the ones who have the power. So the idea of power, like you saying, it is something frightening when you think about it because it is big. It's literally, and especially when it comes to political power, because you can influence so much.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's too much of a power to be given to one person.
Right.
And so yeah, there is indeed, it is a structure, and
Right.
that power, it is indeed very, yeah, it is great, but
Yeah.
power is not bad. That's my point. That's the point I also want to make, is that power is not bad. It is big. It is, it's a big weight
Mm-hmm.
um put upon even a person or a group, but it's not
Yeah.
one. I think even
Yeah.
God himself is not one, because it's always talks in their day form. The
Right.
Elohim is a group of, well, either spirits, but it's a collective. It's not
Right.
only one entity, one being. It's a group of energy and forces that serves
Right.
as one entity, and that's the only way to actually hold power. But it can be good, and it can also
Yeah.
be evil. But
Yeah.
power itself, nah, it's don't be scared if we put you in a powerful position. I hope I hope you don't run away from it. Hey,
No, I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I should
no,
handle it
definitely don't.
wisely.
Oh,
I
don't,
shouldn't.
just take it. I can see you running away. You'd be like, "Hey, Miss Ava, how about you become head of?" Oh, that's too much power, please.
No, I don't know.
Take.
That's not right. I'll take it because you said it. Because you said it, Donnie. On that note, it's time to for us to have a conversation with a reoccurring guest. Paul Grave Boachidankwa has been here on the show a couple of times. For those of you who don't know him yet, he's the immediate past head of programs at the Dankwa Institute and now the founding executive director of Kandifu Institute, a policy research think tank that focuses on
Yep.
leadership, economy, and governance. And he's back here because we have a few questions for him, of course. What has been happening, on his side, and since
Hmm.
since he spoke to us, and so forth and so on. Without further ado, let me get him on, and so that he could join the conversation on this note. Let's do this. Good evening, Mr. Palgrave. How are you?
Hi, good evening, MS.ABA. I'm very well. Good evening, Donny, and good evening to
Good
everyone that is
evening,
here.
sir.
Good to
Good
be here.
Great.
evening. Good evening.
Good. We I already saw you in the background, like even before the show began. Did I communicate an earlier time, or is this you're getting ready for,
No, I think I actually got the timing at 6 o'clock.
right,
So I'm not too sure whether I got the GMT or the CT. I'm not.
right. I'm so sorry to keep you waiting there. We
I,
had the first hour of news
I
flash
think
and
so.
then the big
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I, how have you been?
I've been very well. Just quite a sad note to have lost our first president for the Fourth Republic in the manner in
Yeah,
which we weren't expecting. Um, it just tells us how difficult this year has been for all
yeah,
of us. And then also, I mean, I've been following the conversations that yourself and Donny have been having as it relates to leadership. And so, as elderly leaders transition into eternity, then it means that younger persons begin to start rising up to the hallmark of leadership. And I think that there was a person who stated that on the African continent, there's not been younger persons that have risen up to
yeah,
the highest level of leadership in terms of presidency. I
yeah,
think that that's a bit out of context. I mean, even in the US, we have Trump who was old and Biden who is also
Biden
old,
too.
and so really leadership is not really an age factor. It just needs to be put into perspective. My only concern and challenge is for presidents that are held on to power for quite considerable number of time, and it's now becoming a bit
yeah,
stifling on the ruling populace. And we've seen uprisings in Mali as a result of that, for which reason the sitting president, Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, who is the president of Ghana, and chairperson for ECOWAS, to call a meeting so that we'll be able to ensure that we bring peace and stability in Mali. And all those uprisings that are happening in Uganda and other countries are all case studies for us to know that younger people, in a very short time, will be rising up to leadership.
Yeah.
How prepared they are is critically important within this period. And so I've been very well. Our institute has celebrated 1 year.
Yeah.
Since its beginning. Thank you very much. To the rest of the team, we've been working very hard. And we are just thinking and planning into bringing policy conversations into the rest of Africa. And so we have begun pioneering works. We want to go into Kenya to set up an Ifo Institute in Kenya. I'm sure those that are watching are going to be particularly excited about that. We're going to be going into South Africa as well to start some work in South Africa. We will be going into Rwanda, Kigali, to start some work in Kigali. We will start some work in Liberia, and then we'll try to start some offices in Europe, just to see how we can be able to bring the entire context of making leaders from the diaspora to be able to the continent of Africa, and really also be ensuring that we'll bring about a change. So it's really a very good time for us as an institute, beginning the new decade of 2020 to 2030. By the time we get to 2030, we'll be celebrating 11 years of existence. I mean, we would only be able to determine the impact that would have made over the past 11 years, and the number of countries that would have penetrated into, and the number of countries that we'll be working in. And we've also been working very hard and very tirelessly. We've been writing articles and publishing policy papers, some suggestive ones, for some number of countries. As we mourn the passing of President Rawlings, we also very greatly have been mourning the passing of one of the South African leaders, Enugu, as well, who was one of the leaders during the apartheid regime. And so we wrote a piece on him, just so that other persons that were part of the South African apartheid struggle will be able to come to terms with things that are happening. And so really just tells you that, yes, other elderly people that fought for the continual independence and genocide reactions on the continent of Africa, that lived the life that they lived in, really have just gone. So Enuga Reddy is gone, and the Ifo Institute just shared our commiseration to the people of South Africa. Last month was the Global Month of Breast Cancer, so we had a number of activities that were engaged around cancer and its impact on young ladies, and also its impact on young men. September was a month where, in terms of our social responsibility, we focus very strongly on suicide, because globally, the number of events that gather around suicide, young people who don't want to share things that they are going through, and as a result of to take their lives into their hands. We wrote papers, we gave suggestive policy direction to governments all around the continent of Africa.
Yeah.
As a result, as an institute, we are going to be pioneering a strong action course on global health and mental health, so that we can be able to save more people from going through tendencies of suicide, and even those that have been victims of suicide, in terms of parents, in terms of siblings, will be able to know how to live post the trauma of suicide. We've been working very hard. I mean, you know the conversations about US and the elections. Congratulated Kamala Harris and Biden on their win, and the whole context that it brings along board. We worked very strongly as well on Ngozi. We predicted that Ngozi Iweala was going to be the WTO Director General, and it happened because of the perspectives that it comes along for the African continent, and also as she becomes a middle player for the rest of the global players around the world, China, US, Japan, South African players. Her leadership obviously is not going to be an easy journey for her, but as an institute, we are keeping our eye very closely on that. It also works for us as a continent, and even for Ghana, because now we have the African Free Trade Center in Ghana, and so I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of trade activities that are going to happen as a result, because of COVID as well, Ngozi just really comes in very timely, because then Africa now begins to become a manufacturing continent rather than a continent that keeps receiving from the other parts of the world like Asia and Europe and the rest of the world. So we've been working very hard on these days. You know that in just 15 days, Ghana is going to vote for the 8th time. It's going to be a test of our democracy, 28 years of democracy. I'm sure that we're going to be talking about the legacy of President Rawlings and even the legacy of the multi-party democracy and what that means for us. This year we have 12 persons that are standing for president. As to whether they have the weight, as to whether they have the magna, as to whether they have the colossus to be able to bring the leadership change that is deserving of Ghana. I mean, the good people of this country would need to decide. And so we'll be having a number of conversations around that. But look, I'm very excited about today's conversation, and I'm sure that as we come along, we'll see what good things can be done.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
A lot has been going on.
That's quite a lot has been going on, yeah. So many things I heard.
Exactly. Like, I can take a deep breath for that.
Yeah.
One thing I want to know is how has been, the atmosphere now in Ghana been? Of course, we hear about it from friends and family, because now this has happened. We lost a powerful. That's not even enough to say a powerful leader, just an icon as it relates to Ghana's history. How is the environment now as this time for elections is now led up? I mean, didn't I hear that they would postpone the election as it takes place? Was it the first week of December? How is that happening? Just to inform us on that.
Okay, sure. So thank you very much. And I think that in the very divine nature of our Supreme Being, he controls when people enter into humanity and when people exit out of humanity. Proceed with my very peculiar understanding of life, I always see that whatever happens for a purpose. And so there are some very good sides of the demise of President Rawlings that we can look at, and also some very disadvantageous sides of his exits that we can look at. I'd like to combine the two. At the moment, the country has observed 1 week of mourning where there was a halt on campaigning, and so all political parties receded back into the capital, or receded back into the places of their abodes to ensure that they observed that 1 week of mourning for the former president and the first president for the first republic of the country. And there was an opening of the book of condolence. Various dignitaries went to sign the book of condolence. Some political parties at that time disowned him as the founder of that political party, suddenly decided to claim ownership of him as their patriot, and held on to various vigils and various memorial walks, and just to be able to ensure that, I mean, in the whole whip and caprices of the election euphoria, just to be able to ensure that people still do not lose sight of the fact that they are doing an election and it's an electionary season. By and large, in terms of the first 1 week of observing the memory of former President Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, we can clearly say that it's been extremely successful. It's been extremely peaceful. The President of the Republic of Ghana had an opportunity to declare or announce his death to the entire citizenry, and I'm sure that he followed on to announce his death to UN. I'm sure he followed on to announce his death to the ECOWAS countries representing. I'm sure he followed on to announce his death to AU. And so really, President Rawlings and the environment in Ghana was an extremely mournful moment. It's been an extremely mournful moment, difficult 1 week that we have had in the country. The former First Lady, the former First Lady, Nana Rawlings, is going to be holding a press conference tomorrow at about 2 p.m. GMT on the death of the husband. And I'm sure many people are waiting to either hear whether she's going to step down from standing as the flag bearer for her political party in honor of her husband, or she's going to go ahead to stand for flag bearership. So there are a number of dynamics that come to play. There are dynamics of Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings' daughter, who is also standing in one of the constituencies in Accra for the biggest opposition party, NDC. So in one family, really, you have really what you can be able to use as a case study to study what political journey is, because so you have in one political family, you have a family that went through military dictatorship, a family that went through democratic leadership, and a family that grows up to become a state family. And now all of that dynamics is going to be a bit of a study for young people that are interested in political science and young people that are interested in democracy. And really, for this new decade that is beginning, it's going to be something that people should look out for. For me, one that leads a think tank and the largest and fastest growing think tank on the continent of Africa that is very youth oriented, is going to be an avenue for us to study how the politics evolve. And then also, the 1 week ended on Thursday. Immediately, people needed to go back into the campaigning season, really just to be able to make up for the rest of the days that are left. It's an extremely crucial and critical moment. I'm sure we'll have opportunity to talk about other things, resignation of the special prosecutor, and its impact on the election, even the death of Lieutenant General John Rawlings, its impact on the election, and how political parties are wanting to use that as a yardstick to say that they need to be able to win the election to give credence and honor to the former Flight Lieutenant General John Rawlings. But really, for me, we want to be able to honor the person and the persona of Flight Lieutenant General John Rawlings, who in himself became a military dictator and managed to be able to hand over power and help introduce multi-party democracy with the rest of the persons in the likes of Don Ajekum-Kufuor, then President of the Republic of Ghana from 2000 to 2008, now sitting President of Ghana, Kufuor, in the days in 1992. These are persons that really held on to ensure that multi-party democracy becomes one of a yardstick and one that would be able to develop a country. All around the world, based on multi-party democracy just 2 days ago, which is available on our website that people can view and watch. Multi-party democracy is one of the yardsticks that deepens democracy and helps bring development into countries. So countries that have resolved into a two-party state should be countries that typically maybe have grown over 300 years, like the UK, like the US. For us as a country that is about 63 years and leading the path on the continent of Africa, we need to ensure that we open up, really, we need to ensure that we open up the electoral college beyond two major political parties. We need to ensure that we equip more the other political parties that are either struggling to grow. So we have 10 other political parties that are standing in these elections. We need to be able to ask the question, do these other political parties have the gravitas? Do they have the resources in terms of human resource? Are their resources, are they built enough to capacity, whereby if the good people of the country decide to vote for them, will they be able to lead the country towards where Ghana wants to go to? Or they just want to be part of the numbers? So really, it's not just a matter of having a multi-party democracy, but it's also a matter of ensuring that in the multi-party democracy-ness, you have people that have gravitas. So when you put leaders on the table, you have leaders that rise eyeball to eyeball, shoulder to shoulder. So in terms of, and I congratulate Donny on his master's. I think that earlier on I heard that he was going ahead with his master's, either graduating or something. So congratulations on that. So the real commendation that comes from Donny, who is doing his master's and finishing, and when Donny sits with someone in Ghana who's also doing his master's, is really leaders at the same level. And it's not like there shouldn't be any deficiency. So in terms of our multi-party democracy, which is a brainchild of Ghana's history, we need to be able to ensure that the other political parties are built up. And really, that's some of the things that we need to be looking at as we go forward. So in terms of memory of President Jerry John Rawlings, the 1 week was extremely solemn.
Right.
people remembered about some of his good things, and some people were mourning some of the bad things that he did. Some people were chastising him. Other persons felt that he didn't die in the manner in which he should have died. He should have died a cruel death. But really, who determines how one should die? And I think that other persons might not have gone through the process of understanding that this was a man that in 1979 took the helm of affairs of the country, and at the time was a military dictator, grew up to become a democratic leader, and said, I mean, for someone to live in a country 28 years after handing over, okay, or to 20 years after handing over, and 28 years serving multi-party democracy and a stable democracy, you can see that this person had immediately risen up to become a state person and become a global person. Because right after he left office in 2000, he was on the UN team, just working for the United Nations around the world. And in recent happenings that happened in Mali, we realized that when the Malian and military soldiers came into Ghana for the ECOWAS meeting under the leadership and the chairperson of Nana Akufo-Addo, they paid respect and homage to President Rawlings and his home. And so for me, I'm using all of these as avenues of studies and avenues of observing the leadership and the stability. You know, real leadership is not at the forefront. Real leadership is what happens at the backstage. So what is happening at the backstage is extremely critical for what happens on the forefront. In any football field, you never find coaches playing on the field. You always find players playing on the field. But you only find coaches play on the field when they're rehearsing, because then the coaches need to be able to teach the players what to do and what not to do. But when it comes to a real game, you never find the coaches. So we are yet to really understand the impact that President Rawlings had in his 20 years as a leader on the continent of Africa. We are really yet to feel his impact, even when he was out of government from 2000 up to date. The entire country is yet to really see the dynamics and the politicking that was played at the background, the international conversations that were held, the respect that people had for him, for who he was, for who he had become, and how he has transcended into a statesmanship. And for me as a younger person, I mean, I have personally commended President Rawlings. I had various conversations with him prior to his demise. Spent a part of his birthday with him, even when his mom died. We had various conversations. I have compared President Rawlings to Mandela of South Africa. And these are for us, for the younger persons that were born the 20th century, right up to maybe the 21st century. These are for us good models that we can immediately say our eyes have seen. We have seen their leadership. We have seen how far their leadership has impacted Africa. And I can even compare him to Kofi Annan, who rose up to become a United Nations General Secretary. So really, on this continent of Africa, Africa has given birth to great leaders who have risen up to the highest level globally and gained global prominence. And I think that we need to be able to give this due as we refresh the history of democracy in this country, the history of democracy on the continent of Africa, and the history of the global world as it relates to an individual who is able to stir affairs the leadership of the ship and turn the ship towards a direction where it can be stable on the high seas.
Yeah. I think that answers one of the question that I was going to ask. You know, what is how would you best describe his legacy? And I think there is, as you said, yeah, that's exactly that. And that you would compare him to Mandela, Kofi Annan. Could you explain a bit more about that? Why would you give that, comparison? Why isn't it strange that comparison is there? And most importantly, why is it for young people to know that this is comparable? The achievements, the reputation, everything surrounding that is comparable to the likes of the Mandela.
Okay, so you know that you were talking about power, and really credit was given to Lord Acton. Lord Acton said that power corrupts, and power corrupts absolutely, because absolute power, absolutely. So this was a man who set out to become a military pilot, and realized that he was one of the foremost pilots that the country ever had. He flew his jet underneath the Adome Bridge, and I mean, it's all around the world in terms of how adventurous he was as a pilot. I am not sure that President Rawlings, at the time when he was Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, as a military person, ever had a desire to want to lead the country. He came clearly to lead the country because he felt that the good people of the country were not being treated fairly. He felt the needs of the poor. He felt that at the time, Ghana had enough resources and Ghana needed to be developed. I do not blame him, but a lot of excesses happen because you see, really, Donny and Abba, and for those of you that are watching us, we realize that life is lived forward, but life is understood backwards. And so today, the 22nd of November 2020, there are things that MS.ABA, Donny, myself, and everybody watching around us are talking about in terms of COVID, in terms of leadership, everything, global changes, dynamics, everything. But we will really understand the impact of COVID 10 years from now, because that is when we will be able to live outside of the situation, be able to look into the situation and make a comparative comparison 10 years afterwards of what happened in COVID. So really, if you look at Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, there was a particular situation, a peculiarity of it, that he picked up power and he did a coup d'etat in 1979. In that period, when he did the coup d'etat, he realized that the good people of this country needed something better. So then, after he did the coup d'etat, usually you don't hold on to military regime for a very long time. It's really to be able to be sure that is why the military is an independent security agency. You understand? So the military has not got any political affiliation. So really, when he picked up the military regime and he became a military dictator and held on to the office, then Lehman came into power. He handed over democratic rule to Lehman. Then he felt again, individually, I'm sure with the rest of the persons that are around him giving him advice at the time, that things were still not being done well. So he came back again in 1981. And then in 1981, he held on to power till we came to 1991, and then there was all these conversations around forming a multi-party democracy. Then he championed the PNDC, the AFRC, and all of those other excesses that might have happened in his name because he was the leader of it. Now, then he resigned really from the army and then came into full politics. And in the full politics, he formed the NDC at the time, and still is the NDC. And even how covenantal it was, signed the constitution of the NDC with his blood. And so you can clearly look at the persona of the individual. He did things extraordinarily. He never did things that was ordinary. He did things that was far beyond the imagination and understanding of who a leader is. So for the young people, in terms of getting things in perspective, things happen in life, and you need to be extraordinary in your thinking, and you need to be a leader who wants to live out for the needs of the people. That was really what we saw in the then President Jerry John Rawlings. And we went into multi-party democracy, and he ruled for 8 years. He won the 1992 election, even though other political parties boycotted that election, and it's credited to be a stolen verdict. And then in 1996, there was another election that was held. He won that election. In 2000, I think that the good people of this country felt that there was a change. And then they went into the ballot, and he lost the election. And then President John Ajay became the president at the time. I mean, I'm very sure that from 2000 up until his demise, I am very sure that very good political science professors would either have predicted that we should watch out for surprise. And we never saw that surprise happen for 20 years of the man leaving office. This clearly tells you that he had moved right up from becoming a military dictator. He has metamorphosized and transformed into a democratic leader, and he had grown into a state person, where his influence behind the scenes was extremely more impactful than him being at the forefront. and he observed the democratic dispensation. And we could hear the times when he spoke and he was referred to as Dr. Boom and all the other names that they gave to him, which I'm not sure I can even recall any of them. But really, we could see that this is a man that had matured. And in the immediate ascension of Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic now, who won the election in 2016 December, when he was giving his victory message, clearly made mention of the role that President Rawlings played significantly in his winning of the bid. And so really, you could see that this is a man that has transcended beyond political boundaries. He had transcended beyond political party colors. And so for a man who had founded a political party, whose wife had founded a political party, whose daughter is an MP in a political party he founded, which had given up on him as a founder, I mean, clearly you could see that this is a man that had grown. So for the young people, really give yourself leverage to grow. When things happen to you in life, just consider it as life. Life happens. And when you consider that life happens, then you can be able to grow out of it. I'm not sure that President Rawlings held on to becoming the founder for life of the NDC. And there are comments that have been made by other political party activists, for which reason I don't even want to reference to it. But if you could clearly see that he literally let go of a political party that he founded, he loved and adored, because the people at the stage felt that they didn't want him to become the owner, and then they referred to him as a god, that they didn't want him to become a god of a political party. And if there was anybody who was a selfish leader and was not a selfless leader as he was, he would have fought that role. But you could clearly see the manner in which he led his life in the latter days of his life. And really, for any political party, now the NDC, to say that they were birthed out of a revolution in 1979, that was in the 20th century. For crying out loud, we are in the 21st century. If you were born out of a revolution, that revolution is old, it's past. And so, you need to be able to metamorphosize into a political party that is now living the tenets of democracy. We cannot say that what brought us into independence with the big six in 1947, when Dr. J.B. Dankwa declared that Ghana is ready for independence. 10 years afterwards, Ghana becomes president, and we have the first leader of the country at the time, being Queen Elizabeth, who celebrated her 73rd marriage anniversary with her husband, and ruled for 3 years, 1957 to 1960. And then between 1960, Ghana became a first republic, and Kwame Nkrumah was the president. You understand? So really, up on that time, you cannot say that we should be able to look at Ghana now after 63 years of independence and still be looking back and saying that Ghana was birthed through 6 people, and so the purpose for which Ghana was birthed, no, we have grown. And so because we are growing, things are changing, things are evolving, things are metamorphosizing. And as things metamorphosize, we only look back to the fight of our great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers, Yasantua, the people, Jankroma, all those people that fought for the independence of this country, the chiefs, the politicians, the pastors, the religious, all those people that fought for the country. That is why the blood and the toil of our forefathers. That is why the yellow represents our mineral resources. That is why the green represents our agriculture, the impact of our agriculture. And the black star continually tells us that we are the shining star of Africa. So if everybody looks back to the history of Ghana, 63 years after independence, they should be able to look at the flag. What does it represent? Not just the basics. If the NDC wants to be able to look back to the formation of the National Democratic Congress, they should be able to look back to it. If it was formed out of a revolution, are we still in the revolution? Have we gone past the stage of revolution? Have they looked at the persona and the character of the individual who founded a political party? How much has he grown? And how much must they represent the political party in the nature and the character of the person who founded it? If we need to put those things in perspective, then I think that will be able to help our democracy. So really, in the year 2020, as we look at the impact of President Rawlings and how no matter how much he was involved in the ruling NPP, and how of a wise counsel. I mean, and there are records to show that at every sitting State of the Nation address, at every sitting reading of any public statement where the president would be, you will find Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings there, which clearly tells you that these are persons that had become friends. And that is what we have lost, the treasure in this country. We don't have many. I mean, in the US, I think that there are a few of their presidents that are alive. In Ghana, we boasted clearly of Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. We boasted of President John Adokun Kufuor. We boasted of President John Mahama, and now we have a sitting president. So to lose as a president is a big treasure that we have lost, and which is the reason why, without doing any politicking, if you have an opportunity to lead the country, even for a term, and you lose, it is not right for you to want to come back again to want to lead that particular country. Give room for young people to come into leadership, because really we need you to now rise above. You understand? Rise above the leadership so you become a state person. You understand? Because this whole, and that's why Lord Acton said what he said, that power corrupts and power corrupts absolutely. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you have one term and you lose an election, it's enough. Rise up the bar of leadership and become a state person, because we need many more past presidents who are living, who can be able to bring their lessons to bear. Because you see, like I said, life is lived forward, but life is understood backwards. So if you were a certain president, you got very busy with your rulership, you never were able to see your mistakes. You know, it is said that in a Ghanaian parliament, he said that the one that is clearing the road does not see that the path is crooked. So really, if you come back, that's when you really become a state person and you're able to guide and guard. But this whole journey in which we are, of the fact that once I've been there before and I still have an opportunity to do it, let me go back again and face problems that I couldn't face, will not help in any country's development. I think that we need to be able to go above that and see that we can be able to bring our development to the standard of the world.
But just a question, looking at how democracy itself is operated in not only in Africa but worldwide, do you think that nations are ready to receive a younger individual as a leader in a democratic nation? Because yes, on one hand, we do admit and we do say that we need younger leaders, or old leaders should retire or should take a step back and be head of states or statesmen and guard the democracy and let the younger leaders lead. However, like looking at the previous elections in the states, they're all, let's say, old. Bernie Sanders old, Joe Biden old, even our sitting president in Ghana, he's old. So do you think the nation, so the community, the voters, we are willing to accept a younger person take that role of president?
Well, thank you. There's not an easy response to this, to be honest with you. What I would say is that wisdom comes with age. And so I cannot sit here to misplace the role of elderly people in our nation and our politicking. It is also important for us to realize that we are a very young country, unlike the US, that is over 300 years old. And we are an extremely young country. Our democracy is also young. We've gone through different dimensions and a very undulating journey since 1957. We've gone through monarchical rule, we've gone through the military rule, we've come through stable democracy, and I mean, we've just had, our republic has been the most stable democracy for 28 years. And so it would take a bit of I've not done my projections well, but if I am able to look into the country Ghana, it will take an extra 20 years to 25 years to have a younger person and to come on board. Really, as we have this conversation and narrative, it's also important that the younger persons do not rush up themselves to come into leadership, because when the opportunity is right, you will realize that the avenue will be created and it will be a seamless entry. You know that because of the practice and the style of democracy that we practice in the part of the continent that we are, it's based on political parties. So if a political party feels that a younger person is well deserving and a younger person is surrounded very well by elderly people who can advise, coach, mentor, and guide, then we can say that yes, let's push this younger person because we know that he's teachable. We can use him to be able to bring a paradigm shift on the continent of Africa. And his other continental leaders will respect him because he's earned that. You understand? So really, we need to be able to put those things in perspective. But in terms of the generation and the populace accepting younger people, I think that if young people are astute and if young people take the opportunities that they do, regardless of what it is, and rise up to leadership, because you see, I mean, MS.ABA and Donny and myself and everybody that's watching us today, we are just here as media personnel and civil society conversations. Many years ago, a young man rose up called MLK, Martin Luther King. He was a civil society advocate, you understand, and he was a reverend minister. And I mean, he might not have even seen whatever he was dreaming about, but 100 years down the line, 200 years down the line, we are here in the world celebrating him because he believed in something, stood for something, spoke about it, and is living and is present now. So I think that if young people rise up to the occasion, and if young people allow themselves to be trained well, coached well, discipled well, mentored well, educated well, you need to be educated. You should not be under-educated. You need to be educated to be able to meet up to the global level. Your level of acumen and your level of home knowledge and your level of global understanding to be able to meet up to the rest of the world. That if you sit with President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, you'll be able to hold a global conversation with him. You sit with Paul Kagame of Rwanda, you'll be able to hold a conversation with him. If you have an opportunity to sit with Joe Biden, you should be able to hold a conversation with him. So really, your level of leadership and your level of argument and your level of intellect to be able to rise up to the person that you're going to be sitting around the table with. And we've seen, we have a younger person in France who is president. We have younger persons all around and scattered across who are championing good things. So really, if young people are astute, if young people prepare themselves well, I think that if the continent of Africa an extra 20 to 30 years, you would be amazed with the number of young people that will rise up to leadership. And I mean, it could be our children, it could be any of us around the table, because you see, really, it's and that's what it is. People, we often do not plan where we want to be, because for what we learn in the good book, which says that man plans, man plans, but the plans of man is disposed of God. You know, so really, sometimes a lot of the plans that we make are thwarted in the minds of God. So God really holds the bigger plan for everyone. And once God holds the bigger plan for everyone, God can orchestrate the lifestyles of people. And I'll tell you the truth, I know that we'll be going to talk about a lot of the things that I've done before. I've been a missionary for 22 years. And having been a missionary for 22 years, having served in 78 countries, MS.ABA, Donny, and the rest of the people that are watching us, if I tell you that 10 years ago, I knew that I would be in Ghana, I would be sitting where I'm sitting, having served as head of programs at Danko Institute for 1 year and founding the Danko Institute, I don't know. I didn't know that. And clearly, 10 years from today, which is going to be 2030, MS.ABA and Donny, I don't know where we would be in the world, but I'm not too sure where I would be. But I know that where I am today is not where I'm going to be in the next 10 years. I'm definitely going to be higher, bigger, stronger. The influence is going to be larger, more deeper, more growth, I mean, anything and everything that you can think about. You understand?
Right.
That's what it is. And if I'm sure that in the next 10 years, wherever I am, in the next 10 years, wherever MS.ABA is, wherever Donny is, I will not be surprised to see Donny wherever he is. I'll not be surprised to see MS.ABA wherever he is. I'm not sure any of you will be surprised to see me wherever I will be. Because you see, it's really preparation. But it's really preparation for an opportunity you are not aware of. That's really what it is. So it's preparation for an opportunity you are not aware of. But when that opportunity presents itself, the manner in which the skill, the discipline, the results, the resoluteness, the impact, the style, the leadership that you will bring to bear, you realize that everything was working together for this particular season, for whose glory? For God's glory to be seen. So in response to your question, give the continent of Africa another 20 years, another 30 years to be able to grow a lot of depth. DEPTH. Ghana, Africa should be deep. It should be deep, deep leaders. We shouldn't be an inch deep. We should be a mile deep. You understand? A mile deep, so that you're able to hold global conversations. And you're able to hold global conversations, and the elderly people feel that you found a stake around the table. They'll bring you around the table. And when you come around the table, as it is said, if you're in the house of a rich person, hold a knife to your throat. The fact that you know something does not mean you should rub it on the face of the elderly people. That's one of the things that I've learned very well. I've learned that younger people have an extreme advantage and opportunity. Why? Because it's the 21st century. Why? Because it's a technological world. Why? Because it's fast-paced. Why? Because we understand it. So when we come around the elderly people, they have unprecedented opportunities. The doors are open only based on how we behave. And when the doors are open only based on how we behave, then it opens for other persons. But if we misbehave, it's closed for other persons. And trust me, I'll tell you the truth. Many elderly people will never open doors for younger people and die with the opportunities. Why? Because they've been disappointed by younger people. Last year, no, I think sometime this year, I had an opportunity of one of my elderly mentors visiting me in my office and said, Paul, I'd like you to go and meet a certain judge. So I went to meet her in her home, and she's a retired judge. And then she said, I don't have properties to give to you, but what I'm going to hand over to you is work. I'm going to hand you over work, and that's my inheritance. I mean, as I sat there, I was overwhelmed that she was handing over work that she had done with UNICEF, and she was saying, Paul, I want you to continue my relationship with UNICEF. And she's not dead, she's alive. She said, I want you to continue my relationship with UNICEF. I want you to continue my relationship with UN, you know. And I like to mention her name, Professor Irene Odote. You understand? So Professor Irene Odote, through one of my mentors, Kofi Kakraba Afo, came to my office and said, let's have a conversation. We've seen what you're doing, and we think that you have the right heart to be able to continue these things. So elderly people that have worked 50 years of their life, 60 years of their life, have resources. These resources are work. If you ascribe yourself to want to work hard, you'll be able to get those opportunities. And when those opportunities come, you need to seize it. And I'll tell you, as I end this particular session, having served as a missionary for all these years, there are still mission organizations that come to me. When they come to me, because I am in a new field of work, I hand them over immediately to persons I know can be trusted. And I'll tell you the truth, I hand them over to young persons. So I'm a younger person that he's my colleague, actually age-wise, everything is my colleague. But I handed over the ministry that I had an opportunity to lead. He's called Benjamin Yamoy. So I handed over that ministry to Benjamin 4 years ago. And he's led it so well. You understand? The last time he was in my office, you know what he told me? He said, Paul, I would like to retire with this organization. That was my greatest and happiest moment. And he is going to retire with this organization. You can imagine the impact. He set up his board. He put me on his board. His board is all young people. He put me on his board. It was such an honor for me to be serving on a board of an organization that I led and I pioneered in the country. It's really such an honor. So really, in terms of not holding on to positions like power corrupts, absolutely. I have always planned my exit at the entrance of anything and everything. And I'll tell you, I've even planned my exit out of Kandefo Institute. You really need to leave when the applause are louder. And I'm sure you guys will be hearing of it very soon when I announce my exit to be able to hand over to a more vibrant person, a person that I feel can carry on the vision longer than I may have to carry it on. You are not preempting anything.
Right.
But then I also hope that when you handing it over, it's also let's say your goal or your wish that that person will also be able to hand it over to someone younger than themselves when that time when that time arrives. Why? Because we all you believe that we all are in this in a life, and in life you have to be striving forward. So meaning if I'm able to hand over this work to you, it's because I'm here now and I want to, I'm growing. So I expect you to also be growing. So this is a position that you that I feel you're ready for right now, but I also believe that you will outgrow this position. And when you outgrow that, I hope you'll be able to also hand it over to someone younger to keep that going. I think that we need that more in Ghana and actually in the world, in any
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Miss
agree.
Hava.
I agree. There's so much more to talk about. Like I'm staring at my screen. I'm like, how am I going to calculate this into the small amount of time that we have left? For those of you who just tuned in, welcome to Africa on Focus here on High Radio. Let me put my mic up a bit. Here on High Radio is where we talk matters rising in the world of global Africans, and we are talking to a returning guest, Mr. Palgrave Boachidankwa, who always gives us so much insight, and now relating to the legacy of the late J.J. Rawlings and how we can convert that into meaningful actions for young people. That's really what we're talking about. And if you are tuning in on your Facebook, on your YouTube, feel free to share it and spread it on your timelines. Invite everybody to come in and join the conversation. In about a few minutes, we will be rounding up, but we still have some time to pick up some of the questions that you might have somewhere lingering. We did receive some questions throughout the weeks for Palgrave, specifically because people were also interested in the mind or the brain behind Kandifo Institute, one who is passionate about young people and so on. And it's good to have this conversation because we get to dive more into your strategic plan as it relates to your plan in general, who you engage with, and some of the tasks that you intend to take on the long run. One of the questions that we have listed here is okay, so find a way to pursue what is meaningful in life, rather contrary to the conventional pursuit of happiness. What does it mean to you when one says the meaningful things in life? What does it mean to you, Palgrave? Somebody wants to know.
Okay, sure. So really, maybe I can tie this up in with trying to define what success is, because I think that it fits in very well. Oscar Wilde says that to live is the rarest thing in the world, and most people just exist; they don't live. And so, to me, success really is to live your God-given purpose. And success is a journey. It's not a destination. You never arrive at success. I think that the life of an individual can be looked at. If your life is replayed back to you, the life of an individual can really be looked at the end of the life of the individual, like we are doing to President Jerry Rawlings today. That we are looking at his life, and as we watch his life being played to us. I mean, earlier this afternoon, I watched one of his conversations with an Italian journalist, and I really, as I watched him, I really could just hear his heart, and you could see that this was a man who had a heart. And I've been personally going through a journey myself, this entire year, that I'm really looking at the old man, which is God, forming my heart rather than developing me as a leader. That that my heart should be able to beat for what really beats for humanity, rather than seeing things and not having a heart for it. I want to grow into a compassionate leader. So really, in terms of the question you asked, which was, where can I find that? What was the question again, please?
Yeah, what do you find meaningful in life? What's in your...
It's meaningful. So meaningful. When you talk about finding things meaningful, it means that there are things that you do that brings you joy, and those things are things that you do without a struggle. I mean, clearly. For me, I speak without a struggle. I can clearly speak on ending. I can speak for 12 hours on ending, 15 hours on ending, 20 hours on ending, 30 hours on ending. And it brings me joy. You understand? And, when I lecture, my students don't sleep because I do not have a dull voice. I alternate my voice. So I have a rising voice, I have a low tempo, and I heard Donny talk about piano. I have a piano as well, you know, and when I turn on my piano in the morning, I can just put it on any medley, which I like it to be repeated every morning, because it's really solitude for me, you know, and music is really what puts the world together. And so in terms of doing things that are meaningful, you need to be able to find things that you can easily do without a struggle. And that's where your passion comes in. That's where your purpose comes in. And you really need to be able to identify what process that is, because it comes from a background and a backdrop of a process. So through that process, you'll be able to find your product. And your product is who you would be or who you are. So at this stage, I'm not too sure how old MS.ABA is or Donny is. I'm not too sure even how old I am. And even though my birthday is on the 10th of December.
30th of December?
The 23rd? The 3rd.
3rd, yes.
All right.
So, if you look at all of those stages, you could clearly see that at the age I'm going to be on the 3rd of December, which is going to be a very day that I would be extremely quiet, because I would want to really look back into X years that I've lived on earth and reevaluate my life Y years ahead of me. So really, when I celebrate my birthday, I always calculate. You know, really, I really calculate it 10 years ahead or 60 years ahead. You know, so if I celebrate my birthday on 3rd of December 2020, and I calculate 10 years ahead, 10 years ahead, I'll be Y age. At Y age, what would I want to see? So I draw a new plan from 3rd of December 2020 to 3rd of December 2030. And within that space, I'm really wanting to see some growth. And you should, you know, that's why I like to write with a pencil, because if it doesn't work, I can easily erase it. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's my life. You know what I'm saying? So, and you really need to be able to plan those things and then submit it to your religious supreme being. I mean, for me, it's God. It's not just God, it's Jesus Christ and God and the Holy Spirit. For other persons, it can be Buddha, it can be Muhammad, it can be Confucius, it can be Hare Krishna, it can be anything. It can be a stone, a calf, anything, an animal, elephant, anything. It could be anything, you know. And really, as you subscribe it to the individual, then the supreme being, then you trust that he brings those things to bear. And those things are, for me, is what you should be able to find meaningful. And in terms of measuring the impact of meaningfulness, you should also be able to hear feedback, because I'm continually happy to always tell my PA to say yes to High Radio, MS.ABA and Donny, because I love to engage with you, because I think that you like me to be a good resource. And so it's good feedback for me to come back again. When I come back again, it means that what I said was not nonsense and it was not thrown in the bin. It was something that is of value, and you receive good feedback. So you're like, let's bring him back again. And I'm sure that after today, you'll bring me back again. And then you bring me back again. And then you bring me back again. And then you bring me back again.
Bring me back early.
You know? And I've said to my team that the persons that engage me continually now are the persons I would want to journey with. And so along my own journey of growth, High Radio, Donny, and MS.ABA, wherever they are in their own growth and journey, will continually be number one, regardless of how busy my schedules are. Because I'm like, I love these guys. They've given me an opportunity. And I need to say a better thank you to them. You understand? So really, that's really what is meaningful, because we don't know what we can benefit from each other along the journey. You know, today is you seated for me to be interviewed. Tomorrow, it may be the three of us saying that, look, we've had these conversations. Let's move these conversations beyond and let's set up an organization. Let's set up something that can bring huge impact on the continent of Africa and in Europe. And guess who will be leading it? It will be Donny and MS.ABA, championing a cause, that will bring transformation all around you. Diaspora involvement on the continent of Africa. Where else would we get these rich resources than in the diaspora? That is why in the conversation of Ghana Beyond Aid is really an environment where we are saying that the African diasporans that have had an opportunity that their brothers and sisters have not had should start thinking about investing back home, investing in intellectual capacity, investing in volunteerism, investing in coming back home. All of those investments are things that will yield this fruit. So really, in terms of doing things that are meaningful, you should be able to measure the impact of it. And you should be able to see, if it's a waste of your time, you will know it. If people are not patronizing and are patronizing, you will know it. But you really just to be able to just evaluate every time you have an opportunity to.
Yeah.
We have some for one more question.
We appreciate the love. Absolutely. Back at you. Another question is also, you know, we know you're a leader, pastor, author, so many things. What would you have opted for in terms of your profession if those tasks weren't part of your duty?
Okay, so you know, I like I said earlier on that really, in terms of finding what to do with meaningful, is really finding what your God-given purpose is. Had I not been a pastor, had I not been an author, had I not been a missionary, had I not been a Bible school lecturer, had I not been involved in governance and in this space, what would I have done? I think that I would have been everything I am now, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, we read from the very good book that when we were clots of blood, he knew us. And so in that very year that I was born, on that very fateful Saturday that my mom gave birth to me, after my dad, who is a medical doctor, a surgeon, an ENT specialist, had said to my mom, I think that we've had so many boys. If this pregnancy is a boy, abort the baby. You know, and I'm the last born of 7 boys. You know, and my mom said, I'm not going to abort this baby. And my mom gave birth to me. And as it's recounted, I'm told that my dad even refused to come to the hospital to pay the bills because it was a boy again. And so in terms of, and so I'm not surprised the manner in which God has journeyed with me. And I'll tell you this, when I was born, in the year in which I was born, and in the manner in which I was born as a ricket. So I had deficiency with my legs. So my legs were crooked. And as a son of medical doctor, whose father was a diplomat of the Big Six, a grandson of J.B. Dankwa and the likes. So he was like, really, how am I going to live life with my son being a ricket and being a doctor of extreme repute? So I traveled around the world with my parents, and they wore me POP right up from my feet to my neck. And they gave me excess vitamin K, which discolored the formation of my teeth. And so growing up whilst I was in the US and even in Ghana while I was schooling, my colleagues would laugh at me and say that the guy with the yellow teeth or the guy with the rotten teeth. And I mean, in the manner in which I've journeyed, even till today, I remember when in the US, my parents wanted to change my teeth so that I can become white. And I told them that if my teeth becomes white, I cannot chew in Africa with chew bones. And when I lived in London and you chew bones, they're like bones of dogs. My friends, my Romanian friends that I used to work with, I used to do some construction work in London and some cleaning work. My Romanian friends I used to work with would say, Shiba, 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 bones are for dogs. But in Africa, we chew bones because that's where, you know, they say that the sweetness of the pudding is in the eating. you know. So in terms of career, what would I have done? I think that I would have been doing everything I am doing now, and I'm really still evolving. There's a lot of things that are ahead of me. I've started a doctoral. I'm doing a doctoral in leadership, which I'm finishing in these 2 years at NIPS. I'm going to be graduating from my LLB, and I'll be going to do law. So I'll be called to the bar in a few years. So really, there's a lot of things that is open to me. As long as I'm young, as young as I have opportunities, I will keep schooling. If I can become a pilot, I will become a pilot, because I started a private pilot school. There's a pilot school here in Ghana. I started practicing, going to the school to become a private pilot. So that one day, when Donny buys a plane and I buy a plane and we get tired of flying our own jet, I can just say, Donny, look, can I come and use your jet? And then Donny say, why not? You understand? So really, I want to be able to be anything and everything. And I'm sure that leads to your other question of someone asking, is there anything like too much success? Because then, if you look at this, you know, I wrote this book. Okay, this is my first book that I wrote. I have written 38 manuscripts. Okay, 38 manuscripts, and manuscripts are really books, but I've just not published them. I've published two of my books. I've published 2 of my books intentionally. The remaining 36 books that are not published intentionally, because I'm waiting for the timing. Yeah. You know, and strategy is important in everything. I'm waiting for the timing, and I'm waiting for a time when I can release the books that it can make the impact that is deserving enough. Yeah. Because some of the things that are written in those books are not going to expire. In fact, when I pick up any of my old manuscripts, I don't edit it, I just publish it. And some of the manuscripts I wrote years ago. So I wrote this book, Go in Search of the One, Secure the 99, Go in Search of the One. What happened? I had my quiet time, I think in 2015 or so. 2015, I had my quiet time. And it was from Luke. And it was really about this whole entire conversation about winning of souls and people coming into your church. And then afterwards, people just leave your church. And you feel that soul winning is so important to you. So you want to be able to keep those people in your church, which is the flock. But what you don't realize that as you keep your eye on the flock, which are in your church, you will soon lose all the 99, because as they leave one, you'll not be able to identify that you haven't left with 50%. Right. Because you are not doing anything in your church. So that made me write this book. And this book was it had endorsement from a number of persons. It's a 119-page book. It's 5 chapters. I have the creed, which talks about where it all began. I was baptized a Catholic. I was confirmed an Anglican. I became a Baptist missionary. I was ordained a charismatic by Reverend Dr. Dakiwad Mills. You know, I served as a missionary and all of those. So I believe in the creeds, and I've always given credit and credence really to the Universal Roman Catholic Church that have held in trust the traditional moment of our Christos, which is the epicenter of our Christian life. Had it not been the Roman Catholic Church, we would have lost a lot of Christian heritage to the world. We would have lost it. Because I lived and worked in Israel, and you go to the traditional sites which have been kept. Those traditional sites have not been kept by the charismatic church. It's been kept by the Orthodox Church. The churches that people felt do not have the Holy Spirit. And I discount that very, very strongly. I came to faith in the Lord at the age of 12 in an Anglican church when I was 7 months on the altar. I received the gift of speaking in tongues at the age of 15 in an Anglican church on the altar. And so this whole conversation around the fact that the Holy Spirit is not in an Orthodox church is unbiblical. It's very, very unbiblical. Because what is charisma? The Holy Spirit himself is the charisma. The Holy Spirit himself is the charismata. That is the Holy Spirit, is the charismata. The Orthodox Church didn't have the Holy Spirit, but you, the charismatic church, you have the Holy Spirit. You have gotten into a state of extra biblical revelations. Extra biblical revelations is euthanasia. Euthanasia is really adding on to the scriptures, and it's a sin against the Lord. No one has a mandate to add on onto the scriptures. If you add on onto the scriptures, you are only getting into extra biblical revelations, and that is also against the law. So I began a lot of my books by the creed. I spoke about the Nicene Creed. I spoke about the Apostles' Creed. I spoke about the Chaldeans' Creed. I spoke about the Trinitarian Creed. I spoke about the Lausanne Covenant, which happened in 1974. I was a part of Lausanne. Lausanne was started by Billy Graham in 1974. What happened? Billy Graham said that there was a need for a globalization of the world and an evangelization of the world. So in 1974, he held a World Global Conference in Lausanne, Switzerland. That's why it's called the Lausanne Covenant. So at that conference, they established the Lausanne Covenant. And I mean, it talks about the purpose of God, the authority and the power of the Bible, the uniqueness and universality of Christ, the nature of evangelism, Christian social responsibility, the church evangelism, and culture, and spiritual conflict, the power of the Holy Spirit, the return of Christ, and conclusion. So I've had endorsement of this book, which is 119 page book. I have given the first publication of this book. I printed, I think, over 1,000 plus copies. I didn't sell any. I gave it out for free, and I still give my books out for free. I don't publish my books to make money. I don't sell my books. I give it out for free because the world needs knowledge. You understand? It's saddening and disheartening for someone to describe the African continent as a dark continent and to say that to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. To be able to eradicate that, I will give out my books for free. So you will not say that you did not have money to be able to buy the book. For that reason, you do not get the knowledge. Take it and read it. You understand? So I've invested close to about $40,000 US in the publications of my books. And I publish these books. Outside the country. I ship it into Ghana and I give it out for free. I just give it out for free. So that's my book on this one. Then I have a second book, which is Saved Alone. How did I write this book? One morning I was worshiping, and I know that MS.ABA is a worshiper. One of the greatest gifts that one can ever receive is to be a worshiper. You know why? Because that's what we're going to do when we get to heaven. And I like to preach a little bit. And no, I'm not preaching to the choir, I'm preaching to the rest of the world.
please not too long so that we can get in time.
Worshippers are people that have opportunity to pray twice. Because whilst you are worshiping, in your worship is prayer. That is why it's the greatest eye of God that the angels declare holy, 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 holy. Every day, every minute, every nanominute, every microsecond, angels are declaring holy, holy, holy. So I was listening, I was just listening to one of the hymnal, which was written by, I can't remember, Horatio Spafford. Good, I remember the name. This hymn was written by Horatio Spafford, who was a lawyer and just a normal Christian who went through the Chicago fires, lost a lot of his estate. Then his family also died. And his wife arrived at the destination, and then the wife wrote a telegram and then brought it back and said, all dead saved alone. All dead saved alone. So the husband went on the high seas, and whilst we were going, the captain of the ship said, come over here. This is where your children drowned. He saw where the children drowned. He went back to the cabin and he began to bend down. Okay? And all is not saved alone. And so I wrote this to also encourage us. It's a 98-page book. This book was forwarded by Reverend Dr. Kingsley Appiagyei, Trinity Baptist Church, UK. And I dedicated this book to two of my friends, Reverend Dr. Bob Hodgson, who was a pastor of Jubilee International Church. At the time in Ghana was the People's Church of Ghana. He launched his church at Independence Square. And then one of my own younger colleagues who was a missionary with me, who died in the field of work. And it's an extremely blessed book. Chapter 1 is the measure of God's love. Chapter 2 is the Son. Chapter 3 talks about justification by faith. Chapter 4 talks about sanctification. Chapter 5 talks about deliverance. Chapter 6 talks about get to know this. Chapter 7 talks about the word of life, the passion, call its name and life. So all these books are free. It's on Amazon. If you want to buy, you buy them from Amazon. But if you see me personally, I give you these books for free. I don't sell them.
Right. So
Amazing.
where can people get them?
On Amazon.
Amazing.
On Amazon. All right. All right. Well, we will be sharing the links to that. Oh my gosh, there are. I'm gonna keep some of the questions for next time when we have you back, and I believe it will be in the new year because we got the election time, and then we have some off time here at the station. So we will then be picking up as more developments regarding Kandifo Institute, and of course more about your books. And there are some other questions that we got on here. Um, so
His
far,
playlist.
oh yeah, we also like to know that before you leave, what is currently on your playlist, your music
Oh,
playlist?
okay. Well, let me see. There was this song. There was this song I was listening to yesterday.
Okay,
Please give me a minute. Let me go and reach it out.
sure,
Okay.
sure.
Yes.
Now I'm
He
reading
wasn't
you.
prepared for that one. He got
Okay.
it. He got it.
I'm trying to reach it.
Right.
Okay. Hang on. Okay. Good. So, please, 1 minute.
Sure, sure. Take your time.
I think I listened to it a number of times. It was really a very nice song.
Right.
So I
How
don't know
did
if
how
you
did
can get
you
it.
how did you discover it?
How did I discover it? I
Yeah.
went to a program yesterday and I had them
Mm.
play. And so when I go back home, I was listening to it.
Mm.
Yeah, that's how we
Please,
sometimes
yes, I
stumble
think I'm
upon it.
almost done. I've seen it. It's somewhere here. It's called Nagode, Yemi Adade, Yemi Alade.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a nice
I
song.
God or something. I'm sending it to you. So that's on
You
my
know that
plate.
song?
I'm
Yeah, yeah, I
sorry.
do. I do. I will play it. I will play it as a
That's
what's it
okay.
is. Yeah, that's a nice song. It's a good song to end on,
Yeah.
and beautiful song by Jemi Alade. Yeah, I know that one. Okay, well that is one to definitely add to our playlist and
Hmm.
get into this new week. Palgrave, thank you so much for joining us once more and
Thank
having this
you.
Appreciate it.
elaborate conversation, very needed conversation about, our history, the legacy of J.J. Rawlings, how we can interpret that to um, action points and how we could move on as young people, how we could learn from that. I think
Hmm.
that in all, the essence of everything is that strive towards being one that has the right people around yourself, rather than hasting and wanting to be a leader just within a short frame of time. I think that's really the one of the moral of this of the conversation that we have
Hmm.
been
Yeah.
that we've been riding on. Thank you so much again. We are going to have you back, and of course we will be keeping in touch. Do you have any last shout outs before we round up with this special requested song?
Well, yes. My shout out really goes to the good people of this country who are going to vote on the 7th of December.
Hmm.
Right,
To all political parties, to all
right,
presidential aspirants, to all parliamentary candidates, to everybody, that let's ensure that we have a peaceful and a safe election. This year
right.
has been a very difficult year for the world. We've had COVID, we've come out stronger and better.
Yeah,
We've seen how to revive our economy. We've seen
yeah,
how to bring manufacturing and productions into our country. We've seen how
yeah,
to be self-dependent and not dependent on the rest of the world. As we go into the election, let's prepare for the new decade. New decade will have a deserving leader that can represent you and your future
hmm,
at the high table of the world of global leaders.
Right. Thank you so much, Palgrave. We'll be catching up and
Thank you.
have a good
Thank you, Donny. Thank you, guys.
have a good evening.
Thank
Bye
you very
bye.
Bye.
much.
Well, Donny, here we are again. On to next new week. Any plans?
Mm-hmm. Any plans? No, this was a good week, so I hope to
Yeah.
do next week exactly the
Right.
same or even better. So, just jam the piano. Yeah, like I'm loving this
Right.
the time I get to spend with my piano. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
did you take a break from work to be able to do this, or is this now part of your routine?
No, I am actually even working more. So yeah, I'm actually
Oh, all
working
right.
for 5 nights or 40 hours instead of 32 hours I was doing before.
Right.
Um, so that means that I just have to limit time for,
Right.
for other stuff. So
Yeah.
very just structure my day, piano, gym, rest, work,
Right.
and just keep that going till I don't know,
Right.
till probably end of December. Yeah.
Oh
And
God.
you, any video dropping any new music or videos
Uh, yeah. I dropped the video this Friday
tomorrow?
of the song called Tomorrow. Yeah. The
Yep.
video, the song is really about hope and confiding in it is about trusting the Almighty, but at the same time being
Yeah.
responsible with your life, putting up the right collaborations to enforce change for your
Just
community, your people. So in the video we took it a bit, I I,
yeah.
I went back. Yeah.
The video looked kind of vintage. Who
Yeah.
produced that?
I did. It was produced by Goed Kroon, which is a creative here, video guy. And I
Shout out
came
to
up with the
him or
concept
her.
because I wanted to go back
Ah,
to the time when my
oh, that was
parents
beautiful.
migrated, yeah, to the
Mm-hmm.
Netherlands and so forth. So yeah, that was a whole concept. So that one, and there will be a new single as well. But hopefully, if my trip back to GH, which has been long postponed, works, we
Yeah.
will we will launch the next single there. So yeah, and I'm gonna play on that guitar and do some exercise. I'm trying to follow up with you, Matt.
Yes. Keep up. Yeah. Keep up. Keep up. All right. Great.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me again. Seeing you next
Thank
week.
you for having me. Thank
I
you.
think next week is a bit money talk. I think there's a financial advisor coming on board.
All right.
And we will also soon are going to talk to Fit Mom. I call her Lady Fit Mom, which is she's all about the fit life and things. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
A health
Let's get
aspect.
it. Let's
All
get
right.
it.
Let's get to the
All
song,
right.
Jimmy Alade Nagode, and have a blessed week.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
It's supposed to flex, baby. But don't you forget, yo, say no be by mighty, yo. Always be thankful. Oluwana go do. Rather no be crying, yo. Spend your money, but always be thankful. Maka if I go ma, even if you no get it, never forget to say bye, thank you. Oluwana go do. And if you to get it, never forget to say bye, thank you. Chineke na so
Person where drive is supposed to park. He not supposed to like you. He's supposed to park. Money, ebe. He man, I'm bumbo supposed to have. He's supposed to have a oh. He's supposed to make a more. Ebe, yeah. But never forget you. Say no be by mind, you always be thankful. Oluwana go there. Sister, no be crying, yo. To spending your money, but always be thankful. Oh. Like an if
rose.
No more enemy,
Pop champagne.
no more complaining.
If you dey live it for lucky, or you dey live it for shita, oh, make you dey pop anything. Cause all na popping, yeah. We rocking Versace, oh. We driving Ferrari, we cruising Bugatti, oh. Forever and ever, oh. We going higher, oh. We no go retire, oh. We getting paper, oh. This is my desire. Even if you no get it, oh, never forget to say bye, thank you, Oluwa, na go there, oh. And if you to get it, oh, never forget to say bye, thank you, Chineke, na go there, oh. And if you no get it, oh, never forget to say bye, thank you, Oluwa, na go there, oh. And if you to get it, oh, never forget to say bye, thank you, Chineke, na go there.
Big smalls up.
Yeah, me all a day, yeah.
Sell Papa day.
Chineke na go dey.
Papa on the beat.
You hold me down like lo lo lo. Your love is sweet like me lo lo. You make a promise, then you deliver. You never fail me, no no no. What type of loving? You ain't a fight on my battles. You put the boy on the way for this victory.
Yeah, fight for the weak and the poor. That's how we go and rise from the ashes. Plus we get our knees to the floor. That's how we go and find any answers. Can't find peace with a sword. Yeah, that's how you know the fight is supernatural. Yeah, heartbeat to the core, we retreat to the Lord when it's time for some action. Yeah. Mighty God, mighty God, mighty God. Fight with the king, get the spoils. Yeah. Mighty God, mighty God, mighty God. Yeah. Blood and bones in the soil. Yeah. Walk with a bodyguard. Only go to war with the lawyer. Yeah. Saints like arms that you cannot fall when God is for you.
Yeah. Lo, lo. Your love is sweet like me, lo, lo. You make a promise, then you deliver. You never fail me, no, no, no. What type of loving? You ain't a fight on my battles. You put the boy on the way for this victory. So we sing, yeah, this is the sound of a victory. We say, this is the sound of a victory. Now put those hands together. This is the sound of a victory.
Yeah, victory, victory, victory. We got the victory. Yeah, empty the infantry since Jesus conquered our enemies. Yeah, blood and bones in the soil. Only go to war with the loyal. Yeah, saints like arms that you cannot fall when God is for you.
Yeah, your love is sweet like me, lo, lo. You make a promise, then you deliver. You never fail me, no, no, no. What type of loving? You ain't a fight on my battles. You put the boy on the way for this victory. So we sing, this is the sound of a victory. This is the sound of a victory. This is the sound of a victory. This is the sound of a victory.
This song is for everybody who found yourself in a situation you didn't know how you were going to get through. God is with you. Lift up your head on the gate and watch the King of Glory come in.
Say you hold me down like lo, lo, lo. Your love is sweet like me, lo, lo. You make a promise, then you deliver. You never fail me, no, no, no. What type of loving? You ain't a fight on my battles. You put the boy on the way for this victory. So we're singing.